Perfect. And Councilmember Bessie, we are good to go when you are.
All right, just one moment, please. Sorry, wait. All right, here, I'm back again. All right, thank you very much. The Public Works Committee will call to order. Good evening. And I'd like to begin by noting that due to the Safer at Home order, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. When there is a vote, it will be necessary to take a roll call vote. The committee member will be recognized and will raise their hand and state their vote. All committee members are present, and they are myself, Councilmember John Larson, Vice Chair, Councilmember Annette Scipio, and Councilmember Morticia Parman. Let me also note that at the request of staff, item C1 has been removed for further work. And at this point then, as usual, let me ask whether there are any other items that any member of the committee or staff would like to ask to be removed from the consent agenda. Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt, to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
I believe that was Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
All right, and the second?
Second.
Councilmember Parman. Very, very good. Those in favor of approving the balance of the consent agenda should say yes when you are polled. Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
And Councilmember Parman.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. That passes unanimously. May we have the first item on the general agenda, please?
Item G1, ordinance amending section 42-154 of the city code relating to handicap parking on city streets, 1429 West 4th Street.
Thank you very much. And making the report for staff will be.
Good evening, Chairman Bessie, Damon Duquesne, Assistant City Manager, members of the committee, members of the City Council. I'm going to turn this one over to our Director of Transportation, Ms. Tanique McCullough.
Ms. McCullough.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you. The original ordinance for handicap parking was made by amendment to the city code and adopted in December of 2016, which allowed for designating handicap parking spaces in the downtown area only. The ordinance was then additionally amended in September of 2017, allowing handicap parking designated spaces in residential areas, providing that additional requirements were met. The property owner at 1429 West 4th Street has provided the necessary information to city staff to such that we are recommending one handicap space in front of their residence. I can answer any additional questions you might have.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilmember Larson.
A refresher course, please, as we add these handicap locations in front of residential units based on the need of the individual resident at the time. We have a system to remove them after so many years, or the residents change or conditions change? How are these things periodically decided as to whether they're permanent fixtures in the landscape, or are they in fact reviewed for the merits that established them in the first place?
Ms. McCullough.
Thank you, Councilmember Larson. Yes, the policy does require that we evaluate them every 2 years. And so our staff would then essentially recertify that the conditions are still such as they were when they were originally recommended, or if there are changes to the policy, that they then meet the current policy.
So that's staff review.
Yes, every 2 years. Yes, sir.
Thank you. That answers the question.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move for approval.
Motion by Councilmember Scipio, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Larson. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll on that. Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Scipio,
Yes.
Councilmember Parman,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That's also passed unanimously. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item G2, resolution approving agreement with Villas at Peace Haven 2 LLC to maintain a decorative street lighting system located in the West Ward.
And I think that that report will also be Ms. McCullough or Mr. DeCane.
Good evening again, Chairman Bessie. I'll, since I surprised our DOT director with the last one, I'll go ahead and field this one for you. This is an item that's been before the committee and the council many times before. I saw what you did, Tanique. I saw your look. That you've seen before is the Villas of Peace Haven 2. They have desire to put in streetlight fixtures that are above the standard fixtures that the city would normally require. These agreements are such that the city participates at the level of a normal streetlight fixture, and the development then pays for any cost over and above that for 10 years, at which point the agreement is renewed. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Seeing no questions, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Motion by Councilmember Scipio to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Parman. If there's no more discussion, those in favor, Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Scipio,
Yes.
Councilmember Parman,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That's also passed unanimously. I had asked that one item be added to the agenda today, and that is an information item only. This is a status report update on where we are in terms of our pedestrian and bicycling safety projects. And let's see, I believe Mr. DeCane had indicated that Ms. McCullough would be presenting the update, or did I get that wrong?
No, sir. Again, I'll give her a pass on this one.
Okay,
Our
go ahead.
Transportation, Mr. Jeffrey Fanzer will be providing this presentation for the committee.
Very good. Mr. Fanzer.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have asked Meredith if she would pull up the presentation. Thank you, Meredith. All right, so as the chairman mentioned, this is an update for information on our priority pedestrian improvement projects. And so what we'll do is we'll run through a quick presentation here, and then feel free to ask any questions that you may have during the presentation. Next slide, please, Meredith. So I'll call your attention to a list that you all have seen before. This was before you some time ago in 2019, where you approved this master list of several locations, in total of probably closer to 80. All you see here is on the screen is about 70. This list is more comprehensive than that. And this was a list where a couple factors came into play, those being where we've had pedestrian fatalities, high-risk locations, those we had recurring or repeating requests, and then just an overall public request. We want to make sure we quantify those and add those to the list. This is the list that you have seen and approved before. Next slide, please. So the process, let's talk about how we go from the list and the project. So what we did, we took that master list and we prioritized those projects based on those different criteria we just talked about, the fatalities, what we had under design, what was needing design, and we looked at those and kind of put those on a master project list that staff manages and maintains weekly as we work through these projects. I want to call your attention to the color code here that indicates what we have done to date and where we are currently. Notice the ones in green. Those are projects that are completed to date since we started this process. Notice there are 8 or so projects that are done currently, maybe closer to 10. And notice the yellow, those are the ones currently in progress, working on right now. We're working at 4th Street on some traffic safety improvements that include pedestrian crosswalks and traffic calming islands. That's where staff's currently working now, managing that project. In addition, we also have a contractor out at Miller and Silas Creek where we are performing some signal upgrades to allow for pedestrian crossing of Silas Street Parkway to get folks from the Miller Street side over towards the college there at Forsyth Tech. So that is currently underway now. Those 2 projects are in progress. I wanted to also mention that what's up next, you'll see the blue and the orange highlighted next. Those are what we have prioritized to be scheduled next. So what staff is doing is coordinating that work, trying to line up our contractors, making sure everything's in, lined up to we can move from one project to the next. We're all working through these scheduling issues with so many projects. We're trying to prioritize our contractors and their availability because these are smaller scale projects, but there's many of them. And we're having to coordinate that work with a lot of their other work. So there's a lot of involvement just making sure we're trying to line these up and have these where they're coming one after the next. So notice that there's 2 bicycle lane projects that are happening next, Academy Street and Trade Street. We are finishing up the funding change order documents and lining up scheduling that work now. So we're excited to get those underway. And then notice after that, there are 2 concrete and horizontal construction project where we'll be doing some pedestrian crossing at a mid-block location at Melrose and Hawthorne intersection, and then also some curb adjustments and pedestrian improvements at Buena Vista and Renault. So those 2 are the next concrete. When I say concrete, let me take just a moment and explain what I mean. So if you recall, City Council has approved multiple on-call contracts because of the nature of these works. We were unsuccessful in bidding these little bitty projects. So we had asked we come together and do on-call services to allow us to be able to have an on-call service, and we can implement and give them task orders to execute this work at a little bit more frequent without having to bring little bitty projects out to bid every so often. So when I say concrete, that is one of the on-call services. So that's what I mean by that. And then moving on down the list, lastly, I wanted to mention where a significant portion of the work is taking place. It is actually in design work. You notice the next 10 intersections that are in red. So staff has contracted with AECom to do some signal design work. Every one of these intersection locations mentioned here are out to design right now. We've been working with a contractor, getting survey, reviewing plans, working through utility issues, updating signal analysis, all types of work, trying to get these plans to where they are today. And we're working towards completion of those signal designs. So you notice all but one of those are through the 90% plans. There is one we're having some right-of-way and some utility issues at Renault and Northwest. We're working through those issues with the designer and their survey crew right now. And that plan stage is at 75%. So staff is spending a lot of time working with our consultant, reviewing plans, working with the survey issues, trying to get those intersections designed, and then they'll be right in the queue to give to work orders to our on-call contractors to execute those tasks. So just wanted to call your attention. This is our project master list. It's much more comprehensive than this, but this is kind of where we are today and what the projection is moving forward in the next projects up ahead. Next slide, please, Meredith. So I wanted to call your attention to just this slide, just showing you that the list that council has seen and my project list, they do match up. You notice the arrows there, not so much always prioritized the same way. The reason some of the priorities change is based on some other factors such as contractor availability. Maybe we had some staff issues coming in, or we had things in the field that warranted like resurfacing, trying to coordinate some of the work with some of our resurfacing projects. So to call your attention to what we're doing here, just we're taking those projects that council approved and we're adding that to our master project list and just facilitating it that way. Next slide, please, Meredith. So where's the money coming from? So this is what this whole priority pedestrian projects and these spot safety improvement projects were part of the 2019 limited obligation bonds where we had $2 million allocated. And so what we see here is just an accounting of what staff has estimated those projects to cost. And then as we work through the design and the actual construction cost, staff is tracking that best we can. based on actual expenditures to show what the actuals are coming back at. And you see to date, we're around the $600,000 mark. And, you know, we're hopeful that we can build all these. Notice that we're just, our estimates are a little bit over budget. So we're hopeful that we can get as many of these built as possible and completely spend down that $2 million. So just an overview of showing you where the money is, what staff is estimating, and where we are today. Next slide, please. So just a quick rundown, the process, as I mentioned, we developed a master list based on those criteria I mentioned that was presented to City Council and approved. And so I also mentioned we went through this on-call service acquisition of the on-call contractors, trying to get them on board to help us with these smaller intersection improvement projects. And then we had to go through all the cost estimation to make sure how many projects we can feasibly build based on current prices of today. And then we had to allocate those funds and try to see how many projects land within our budget constraints. And then, of course, what you saw on a previous slide was how staff is prioritizing projects based on contractor availability and then coordinating with other projects and things of that nature. And then, of course, some of the projects, as I mentioned, are still out for design. And then, of course, we're trying to construct them one after the next. So that's the overall process of approval and trying to get these through the whole process of completion. Next slide, please. So just a couple snapshots of what's been done. So you'll see here the new traffic signal and pedestrian crosswalks that was installed at Winston-Salem. Just a quick snapshot of the crosswalk there. And so that was an older photo. We have actually gone out and refreshed those markings there. It was too cold to put down the permanent markings. So what you see there is the crosswalks at Winston-Salem. And then, of course, the lane shift markings at Jonestown Road to allow for a pedestrian to cross the bridge over Interstate 40. We shifted multi-lanes there on the other side of the bridge and allowed a nice walkway since there are no sidewalks on that bridge. Next slide, please. DOT humor. So just some more follow-up of what we're working on. We had some significant crash history and pedestrian incidents at the intersection of Hutton and Montgomery. So staff did an analysis and it actually warranted to change that to an all-way stop condition. And so what you see there is a little bit of realignment. This is in the middle of the project. We actually realigned the whole curb there, not just the barrier. So it's actually hard horizontal construction with full ADA accommodations, a new sidewalk, and a four-way all-way stop condition. And then what you see there is just the concept plan for what we did at London Lane, some traffic calming measures there with a raised table. Next slide, please. Again, just to follow up, continue, we're working currently, this photo at Miller and Silas Creek. You see the signal contractor working in the trench there. That is taken from today, active construction going on there. They're doing some underground conduit work for the new signal equipment that goes in on that corner. And that's getting preparation to rework the ADA ramps and then provide the crosswalks at that location. Also, I mentioned that there's part of these is a lot of the bike lane projects, and we have done a lot of bike lane work as well. What you see here are a few pictures from both Cleveland Avenue bike lane project and the Liberty Street bike lane project that was done. So just a couple snapshots there. Next slide, please. I don't know if Meredith, did you hear me? Next slide, please. Oh, there it is. Thank you. So what staff wanted to also bring to your attention, a couple of other high profile pedestrian projects that are not part of the 2019 limited obligation bond, but should be noted based on the involvement and the magnitude of these projects. So I wanted to call your attention to a 2018 bond project, which is the Polo Road Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project. This is a project that does not have any DOT funding in it, and we were actually able to keep this project moving, and it's going very well. We have a great consultant on board who's been responsive and actually working through a lot of issues, and we had a pretty well-attended public meeting and good feedback on what's going on. So today we have 25% plans that we have received and reviewed, sent comments back, and they're working through trying to push all the way towards a 75% plan submittal. Things are going really well. Our preliminary budgets are looking good. We're hopeful that we can get everything done on budget and on time. So right now, per our playbook and a schedule, we're right on schedule and budget. So things are looking good for the Polo Road Sidewalk Improvement Project. Also, I do want to call your attention to Renault Road Pedestrian crossing. That was actually on the master list that City Council approved. It was one of the locations that needed improvement. What was fortunate was we were able to partner with Wake Forest to implement some of these improvements. So actually Wake Forest has taken the lead on this. Staff has been involved from day one through public meetings, reviewing the plans, working to make sure we get the proper traffic control and make sure that the medians that go in are adequately sized and will be feasible and safe for the pedestrian end user. So what's currently going in, this is currently under construction. If you've been out that way, they're realigning some of the sidewalk approaches on both the Grayland and the Renault Village side, as well as two fairly good size median islands that will act as a pedestrian refuge and traffic calming devices for Renault Road. It's fairly wide, straight stretch through there. We have a little bit of speed concern, but of course we have significant folks that do cross right there, getting both to Grayland and Renault. We did pedestrian counts there, and it is a high crossing area with no crossing accommodation. So luckily, this was on our list, and we were able to partner with Wake Forest, who's helping front the bill for this one and really make a nice improvement there. And lastly, I wanted to mention, oh, next slide, excuse me. Thank you. Last, I wanted to mention the 6th Street pedestrian crossing improvements. If you notice the RRFB, which stands for Rectangular Rapid Flashing Beacon that's installed at Northwest Boulevard, this is another one. And so also similarly to the one going in at Grayland, these are new, and FHWA has approved the installation of these. And so they yield really high driver behavior. They really yield compliance with these crossings, almost to the point where it's about 85 to 90% of compliance with these RRFB improvements. What does that mean? We're simply going to be installing these two new upgraded sign features that are solar powered. They flash when a pedestrian actuates a push button wanting to cross 6th Street, and they really yield good driver compliance. So we have a multi-lane facility here. We had quite a bit of pedestrian concern and a few accidents here, and we're working to install those now. We've procured all the equipment needed. We've called in our locates, and we're waiting on the final blessing from Duke. Unfortunately, we are installing these right beside some major Duke infrastructure and just making sure everything's lining up well there and scheduling this work. So staff is on board. We had an educational class last week to understand. This is new for our staff, trying to understand the nuances of this equipment, how they operate, how they're installed, and how we plan to maintain these moving forward. So we had a nice educational class last week, and staff is moving forward to get these installed, hopefully this month. So things are going really well there, and we're excited to get that improvement done. That's all I have to present. Next slide is just the question slide. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fansler. Good report. Nice to see all that work getting underway. And I see Councilmember Scipio's hand up.
I always have a question. What part of 6th Street is that pedestrian walkway that you showed me?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it down? It seemed almost, well, you tell me where it is.
Councilmember Scipio, that is the intersection of 6th Street and Poplar. It's
Okay.
just to the east of Broad Street, maybe the best way to explain it. It's right
down,
there adjacent Crystal Towers. Maybe
that's what I was going to say. It's by Crystal Towers.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I know we had some concerns some months back about people crossing and the traffic going over the hidden hill and that kind of thing. So that's part of our solution.
That's yes, ma'am. You are correct.
Okay, great, great, great.
Other questions?
I do want to make a statement that I did see the bike markings on Old Greensboro Road. Matter of fact, I saw them as they were being marked, and I've observed them since they've been there. I'm just curious if we'll have enough people using the bike lane. So I'll just have to go hang out on the street and see who's riding up and down the street. It's not an easy street to ride down and up. So it's very hilly.
Fair enough.
All right, very good. And can we have that presentation be made available to council members?
Councilmember, I don't see any problem with that.
Very good. If you'll do that, that'll be great. If there are no other questions or comments.
I do have a request. If Mr. Duquesne or somebody in transportation, I would very much like the names of the persons at the railroad that I can call and send a letter to regarding the 7th Street closure. And as many names that you can have, because that has been delayed much too long. And we just need to get that open.
Yes, ma'am. Chairman Bessie, Councilmember Scipio, I'll be happy to get that information for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the railroad is notoriously slow to respond. They take the attitude that they are only subject to direct regulation by Congress, and they don't have to
Sure.
answer to us peons.
And I'd also like to know where their office is, because I would like to go take a visit and sit on somebody's door and tell them to open our street. I don't have a problem doing that. A field trip, you know, I love them.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that Atlanta?
I don't know.
Oh no, I was asking. Last time, no, we'll have to check on that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, it's good to have an update on that. It's nice to see that a safety priority project, set of safety priority projects that we approved a while back are underway. And I know that you've had to juggle a lot of problems to get them moving. So thank you for continuing to work on that. Is there anything else to come before the committee this evening?
I do have another request. Since I'm sitting here, nobody asked the questions and you didn't use up all the time. I would like an update on how our street paving is going. I don't know if we're doing much right now or have done this year. But I love to know how we're target for paving our streets. And perhaps if it's underway, a wonderful report just like the one we saw on the bicycle lanes. It would be good to know when our streets are going to get paved.
Let's
Yes, ma'am.
schedule an update on that.
Yes, ma'am. We'll, that function has actually been moved to traffic field operations. So we'll bring that back as an information item next month, and we'll have representatives from that department to get that to you.
One more question. How did the move to Union Station go?
I'll let our Director of Transportation answer that.
Good afternoon again, or good evening again. The move to Union Station is still in process. We were successful in getting our staff moved out of the facility in the Bryce Stewart building. We have some staff temporarily working in some of the workspace at Union Station right now, and the rest of us are working from home. We anticipate being fully in that location sometime about mid-September. And about that time, then we'll make a full announcement and advising people of our new location and inviting people one at a time to come and walk through.
Thank you.
Very good. And one quick question, when is our next scheduled update on the transit system?
Excellent question. Donna, do you know when our next quarterly update is?
I do not. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's due in our October meeting, if I'm not mistaken. October.
Would you like one sooner, Chairman Bessie?
If we're prepared for an update,
Yes, sir. We can definitely
September
be
or October.
Yes, sir. We can be
September? Okay.
prepared before then.
All right, and then let's have the repaving update and the transit system update on our September calendar.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
All right. Anything else today? Seeing nothing, thank you to all the committee members participating, all the staff for your preparation and extra time, and we will be adjourned. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.